Have you ever heard of the idea that the elite have to tell us what they're doing to us in order to avoid karma? If that's the case, what do you think they're trying to tell us through shows like Westworld and Stranger Things and Interstellar and The Arrival? These are just a few that I can think of off the top of my head. And there's one in particular that I really want to get into today, and that is Westworld. So I was inspired to make this video a couple of days ago when somebody on my channel told me to check out Sabrina Wallace. Now, when I listened to her the first time, I'm going to be honest, a lot of the stuff went over my head because she is clearly a very intelligent woman and she knows a lot about computers and technology, and a lot of that stuff goes over my head a little bit. But I did understand the basic idea of what she was saying. And she was saying that we already live in a wireless network and that the technology is already under our skin. So let me start off with a little disclaimer and first say that everything I'm going to say in this video today is for fun and entertainment purposes only. This is all speculation. This is all theoreticizing. Is that a word? Coming up with theories for fun, because what else are we going to do with our free time here, right? So we're just coming up with some ideas for all of you people out there who like to put on your tinfoil hats. So let's get into it. My name's Alex, and if you don't know me, I'm a former gifted kid turned remote viewing psychic on a journey trying to figure out what the heck happened to us as kids. I like to talk about conspiracies, and I also like to provide healing tools and my thoughts about astrology, human design, and remote viewing and psychic development. So today I want to talk about the show Westworld, which a lot of people say was an activation for them. What is an activation, you ask? Well, have you ever been watching a show and something turns on in you? I heard somebody talking about Stranger Things the other day, how it seemed to have activated some memories for them or triggered something inside of them. And I can relate with that because the first time I saw Stranger Things, I was like, wow, really, really taken aback by this idea that there were a bunch of gifted children that were being tested, especially at Montauk Point, which was quite odd because I had a random dream about it not too long after the show came out. And that show was based on Montauk Point, even though I don't, did they mention it? Maybe they did mention it. Now I'm not really remembering. I know the show takes place in Indiana, but I don't remember if they mentioned Montauk Point in it because it's been a while since I've seen it. Either way, I did have a meditation session where I kept hearing Montauk Point, and then I was inspired to look it up, and then I found out that that is where they did experiments on gifted kids to open a portal, or potentially open a portal, use them to run alien tech. It was done at an old Air Force base, Camp Hero, and it's what the show Stranger Things was based on. So there's that. But that's not what we're talking about today. We're going to go back to what I was talking about in the beginning. This idea that I got from listening to Sabrina Wallace. Now, I know this is a controversial name, so I'm not saying I'm co-signing any of this. I'm just talking about it for fun. So it reminded me of how much I clicked with the show Westworld when it came out on HBO in around 2017, which was quite interesting timing for me because not only was that a #1 year in numerology, which is brand new beginnings, it was the first year that I decided to get sober and really take a long, hard, honest look at myself in the mirror. Alex, why is your life so messed up? You're 27 years old. What are you doing drinking like you're 21? When all of your friends are going to college and graduating and having kids and families and they have purpose, and you don't because you're like this giant child who just can't handle reality. So I decided to do something about it. I went to AA because I had a friend who went there, and attraction rather than promotion, because I would have never in a million years admitted to myself that I had any kind of substance abuse issues because I didn't know that I did because I was so normalized. But I saw the glow on this person and I was like, I'll just follow you around to meetings. So anyways, the timing with all of this was weird because as I was eliminating substances from my life, my mind was getting more clear-headed. And I started to have strange synchronicities, like noticing angel numbers, for example, 111, 222, always on the internet too, of all things, right? But then what's really odd is I would start noticing them on license plates in front of me, which is interesting because fast forward about a decade later and hearing people's stories and testimonies of gang stalking and targeted individuals online talk about how they see license plates come up before them Well, if you start to think about the kind of technology that they actually have, because if you look up US patents, you'll see that this technology, all this surveillance technology and remote monitoring technology and biometric technology has been with us, used, experimented on, at least since the 90s, and in some cases, even before that. A lot of it, 50s, 60s, 70s, around the time they were doing MK Ultra experiments. How wild. Anyways, when I've heard some accounts of targeted individuals, if you think about it in terms of, worst case scenario, this technology is being accessed by the wrong hands and they're actually using it on people. Technically, could they say, okay, this car with license plate 111 that's going around is going to be here at noon, so let's send a synthetic thought into the target's mind and say, all right, you need to go pick up groceries and you're going to leave now. Boop. Oh, wow, you ran into that person. What? Must be a synchronicity. Could that be what's happening? I don't know. Just throwing around ideas here. So, now, all right, what is Westworld? If you've never watched Westworld, what is it about? Westworld is about AI robots that look like humans, called host, which means they've got consciousness, but they don't know they're robots because you see, they live on an algorithm. They live on loops. They have a story that they live out every single day, and their memories of their past and their future are synthetic. They wake up every morning after being cleared by the system, and they just think that they're living their daily life. Now, sometimes, since these host robots have been around for a while, and they live in a place called Westworld, where humans can come and have experiences with robots, some humans have negative experiences with them. They do the things like boom, boom, that they can't do in real life. And then there's some that probably, have a cool experience with these robots and make friends with them, right? But mostly they're doing some pretty shady stuff there at Westworld. So of course, since this stuff is so traumatic, they're wiping the memories of these robots every single night. And, if they've been around the park for a while, they might change the storyline every so often. Maybe they give them a new family. Maybe they give them a new place to live or a new storyline to continue to engage their human viewers who tend to come quite often because they become obsessed with these robots. Anyways, these robots, and in the first season, start having strange experiences, almost kind of like what was happening to me, going my whole life and thinking that I was my thoughts, identifying with my thoughts. And then all of a sudden I start to get sober, I start to meditate. Now all of a sudden I'm used to a peaceful mind. And then I start hearing things. Don't lock me up, please. I'm not crazy. But certain things like, you should look this up, or 111, or I see something on my phone. And what I could really relate to in the show Westworld is that they would have these random thoughts that felt like they were coming from a creator, which is exactly what mine felt like. I felt like I was having an awakening of consciousness. And that's ironically what was happening to the robots in the show as well. So let's fast forward. This is gonna, by the way, spoiler alert. So might as well turn this video off if you plan on watching the show and don't want me to spoil it. All right, now turn it off. Okay. So if you're still with me, spoiler alert, after season 1, all of the robots start waking up. They start remembering the traumas that have happened to them. There starts to be some glitches in the operating system, if you will. And by the end of the season, they recognize that they are AI bots and that they've been used in horrible ways by humans who have been experimenting with them, using them, committing acts of violence on them. And what do you know? They start a rebellion. So now in season 2, the host and the robots have control. So now they can go they can get revenge for all the people that harmed them. So a lot of season 2 is about finding and tracking down the people who hurt them. And now the robots have more control because basically the power shuts off in the Westworld after the revolt, after they kill the creator. And now the hosts and the humans that are left in the park are running around, and now the hosts have access to real weapons and they can actually harm people, versus in the park, when the park was running smoothly with the operators, there was certain sensors built into the weapons where a host could not harm a human, yet a human could harm a host. And then they would be taken back to their, I forget the name of the medical facility, but they would be taken back to their creators every night and then patched up almost as if nothing had happened to them. And then their memories would be wiped and then they'd reset and go again. So what's also interesting about this central agency of control for these robots is that the creators could up, or they could heighten, or they could reduce certain traits in the robots. So for example, they wanted to make Dolores, the main character, a little more rebellious or angry or independent, they could turn it up. If they wanted to make, I think her name was Maeve, if they wanted to make her, I forget what they did to her, but more intuitive, for example, they would make her a little more sensitive, a little more intuitive, give her a little more fight. If she was too much, too feisty, they would lower it. So there's somebody in the control center who's able to turn up and down these behavioral traits. And I don't think Westworld's the only show that actually does this. So if you can think of any other shows who actually show creators being able to do this to their humans or their robots, let me know. But I think I've seen that concept before. Anyways, by season 2, robots are starting to take over, make up for what these people did to them. And then by season 3, they go out into the real world in Singapore. And what do you know? There's some kind of AI technology and gigantic algorithm that they find out about. Basically, Dolores, the main character, the robot who started the revolution, meets a human guy. This human guy just lost his friend. He's like in construction or something, and he's pretty much depressed. And I think he's ex-military, so I might be wrong. I'm pretty sure he's ex-military. It's been a while since I've seen the show, but I think he's ex-military, and then I think he had some history with like depression and stuff, and obviously lost his friend. I was like working some job. So anyways, through some way or another, I forget how, they find out that there's a company called Rehoboam. I don't know if I said that right. But there's this company that has a gigantic algorithm that is controlling society. And do you know how they do that? By taking all of the data that they've collected from people throughout their lifetime. So not only their genetic material, maybe that they get from hospitals, but also biometric data that they're using from apps, Fitbits, health apps, trackers that track how many steps you have, or how you're breathing when you're sleeping, and your heart rate. All these monitoring systems that can be done on our phone and our iPhones right now. So you have to turn off the settings if you don't want them to do that. So they have that technology, and then they're also using data that they've gained from these people's social medias, public data, photos, voice notes. And then they built psychological profiles on them so they can predict whether or not a person is going to be prone to violence or not, or rebellion, or what. So, when they have that kind of access to data and information, they can make decisions for the people. For example, they could put something in the algorithm that might implore that person to go down a different path, or it might cement the path that they're already on. So if they have an addict, for example, and somebody who struggles with, let's say, alcohol, for example, maybe they start to give other people, encourage other people and their algorithms to perhaps have a predestined meeting. So they meet other addicts, or maybe they put advertisements in their feed, or maybe they put jobs in front of them where that person would be tempted to do a job that has alcohol. And you could substitute any kind of addiction or personality characteristic with alcohol. So you could substitute relationships there, and toxic relationships and other substances of choice. But basically the point with that is that the algorithm knows you so well that it can tempt you because it can predict your behavior. And in doing so, it's controlling society and keeping society safe. But behind the scenes, they're selling your data to all these multi-millionaires and corporations and conglomerates, and you're just a person who should have free will but doesn't because the algorithms are controlling you. So anyways, Dolores and her companion end up going to their headquarters or something like that, and then he sees some algorithm that says he's gonna pass away when he's 40. That's when the algorithm predicts that he's going to pass because of his history with mental illness and depression and military. Interesting, because I specifically remember having a therapy session when I was about 27, and I was talking to him about my ADHD, and he chuckled during our session and said, most people who have ADHD will pass away before they're 40. You know, usually something crazy like jump in front of a car or something. And I'm just sitting there like, okay, thank you, doctor. I guess I don't have much longer left because I'm in my late 20s right now. Okay, so coincidence? I don't know, just kind of interesting. So anyways, yeah, the show kind of doing all these things, which they're not doing to us now, right? They're not collecting our data through our social media apps or our health data through Fitbits and other devices that we wear when we're working out that's monitoring our health, or maybe like the Apple iPhone and the health data tracking app and how it tracks our steps and everything. They're absolutely not taking that data from us. Absolutely not. And they're not controlling us through an algorithm, because the algorithm absolutely doesn't hear you when you even think about something, and then somehow it ends up on your feed, or it maybe hears your conversation in your house because you've got an Alexa and you've got smart TV and you've got smart internet, and then you also drive a car that has cameras all over it. So not only every time you log into a website and it's scanning your data and your face, biometric face, when you're logging into these sites, because now a lot of them are asking for facial ID. Yeah, that's not happening right now. This is all sci-fi and this is all crazy stuff, right? Not happening at all. No chance that your life is already on an algorithm and there's already a predetermined future for you and your free will has already been taken away from you without you even realizing it. All right, so what do you guys think? My other question, that came to me while I was meditating, which is kind of creepy that this came to me. Well, I wasn't really trying to think about it. Nanotechnology, which is, something that Sabrina Wallace mentions. And again, not co-signing any of her ideas or anything. Also not co-signing them, because I don't know enough about her to make an informed decision about what I think yet. And like I said, very intelligent woman, talking about a lot of stuff that I have no idea what she's talking about. But I'm trying to understand what she's saying, and what sounds like she's saying is that we're already plugged into this wireless system. So, okay, interesting, because if that's the case, I have questions. I want to know if you're telling us, Sabrina, not to get the OT during that special year because of nanotechnology, because we might turn into robots. That's preposterous. That's a crazy idea, right? Crazy idea, right? Crazy idea. Absolutely not true. Okay. But what is nanotechnology? Particles under your skin, they carry lipids and protect the mRNA, something along those lines. I don't know, but my question is, well, my thought during meditation, which again, just a random thought, because thoughts are just random. They don't always mean something. But my random thought was, a lot of childhood vaccinations, right? Get your children vaccinated, right? Very important that we do that to protect against diseases. So interesting, because in the 90s, a lot of us were getting, what we needed to do to stay healthy, protect our community. It's interesting how a lot of us ended up in the doctor's office and had eye surgery many times, eye testing for most of your childhood, for 3 years straight. And then a lot of us hearing tests, hearing tubes for a really long time, which don't sound anything at all like the MK Ultra experiments that they were doing in the 70s and 80s and 90s. Absolutely not. So no correlation there. No correlation there at all, right? That's preposterous to even think about that. What's even more preposterous is to take a book like the Illuminati used to create a undetectable, total mind-controlled slave, and all the testimonials from the victims, testimonies from victims, and ex-handlers and ex-therapists, or therapists who are trying to help these people overcome their experiences with supposed, trauma, we'll say that. Yeah, this is not in alignment with anything that we've read in any type of books like that, right? And the word apocalypse doesn't mean to reveal. And it's not written all over Bible prophecies and all this stuff about how the truth is coming out, and the astrology doesn't point to it or anything. And this is all just one big coincidence. Definitely a coincidence that we're living in a real life Westworld. But just in case we were, because we're playing the game called What If today, we're not actually talking about theories that are rooted in any kind of reality, all right? Because we're not looking at the patents that are out there. We're not looking at different websites that you can probably go to do your own research. We're not looking at any of that today. So this is all speculation. And I'm just playing devil's advocate here. But what if we were actually living in a Westworld? What could we do about it? Could we do anything about it? I don't know. I have some ideas. How might you understand, how might you gain control of your free will back? So my first idea is meditation, because if you really are on an algorithm, if you continue to use the technology that is keeping you on an algorithm, in theory, aren't you just allowing that technology to use you and to keep you on certain tracks? But what if you were to say, I'm going to make a different decision today. I'm going to go against the algorithm that I would normally be on. I'm going to go against the algorithm where I drank 17 triple shot espressos during the day. I'm going to go against the algorithm where I go get a happy hour with my friends. I'm going to go against the algorithm where I go to the dispensary and I spend my entire week's paycheck on some fun treats for the weekend. What if I go against that programming? What if instead of doing the same things that I always do, I decide to do something different? Maybe I stay home, I meditate today. Maybe I turn off my phone. Maybe I go see somebody in person. Maybe I turn off all my health data and I stop wearing my Fitbit because I don't want companies to monitor me remotely. In theory, right? Just in theory. You know, I'm just trying to be a human that is in control of my auric field and my body and my mind and my own algorithm. So again, if we were, those are the things that I would do. So I don't know. What about you? Can you think of anything to add to the list? Why don't you let us know in the comments? Let's have a conversation about it. Let me know. Are there any other movies you can think about that might be telling us something, but probably aren't? Definitely aren't. Okay, thanks for watching. I had a great time today and I hope you did too. And if you're interested in working with me one-on-one to develop your ESP or learn more about your personal blueprint through astrology or human design, go ahead and check out the link in my description, and download my free guide for Gates kids, empaths, and neurodivergent souls. All right. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.